Hi, Charles.
Hi.
Thank you for meeting us. Let me start by asking you, it's a very critical part of, this development for Georgia specifically to have this undersea electric cable under the Black Sea. Explain to me from your perspective how important it is and the World Bank support that Georgia is asking. How is that going to pan out?
It is actually an important project. Georgia had the foresight to want to trade electricity with its neighbors and especially develop its renewable energy markets, hydropower, for exports to Europe. This was a while back. The project gained more importance in the last couple of years because, as we all know, there was an energy crisis in Europe, and Europe decided to decouple from Russian energy markets, and Russia also stopped supplying some of the markets. So Europe is energy starved and looking for other energy markets. So this cable became even more viable. Georgia, it's actually also a digital cable, it's not just an electricity cable. But Georgia essentially is talking to their neighbors and see how other neighbors could also participate. So it's signed an MOU with Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Romania. And I think these other countries, Azerbaijan has huge wind potential, and Kazakhstan also has significant potential. So it is an interesting idea because essentially this region will develop its renewable energy for its own market, but also exports. So it will create a new export revenue and be able to essentially trade into Europe. What it means for Georgia is also has to meet market rules for commercial sales to Europe, and so it will also evolve into sector reforms in Georgia, have a proper electricity market.
And the World Bank has played some major role in policy and structural reforms when infrastructure is concerned. But let's go back slightly here. When we talk about the internet routes, when we talk about this electric cable routes, there are a lot of other countries involved in the region as well, especially when we talk about the digital connect. Is there going to be a role for other countries to benefit from this infrastructure, or is it going to be just these 4 countries which have signed the MOU?
No, I think that there's a role for other countries to benefit. The first step is to update the economic benefit analysis, which we're helping Georgia. You asked me earlier, what is the World Bank doing? So we're providing technical assistance to improve the commercial, environmental, social framework of the project to make it even more viable. And we need to look at how will other countries benefit? And Turkey will be also trading some electricity, and Armenia's potentially in there. So there's other players that could come in on the energy side. On the digital side, we also have to look. It's essentially building a new backbone, because at the moment there's reliance on one single backbone, which, as we all know, makes that very vulnerable. So we do anticipate that this type of project will essentially be beneficial for the entire region, and it'll be up to the countries on how and when do they want to participate.
When we look at this middle, all of a sudden, if you want to talk about the Silk Road being the middle road, there are lots of competing things happening in the north and in the south, and competing in a way to disrupt sometimes the middle road. Do you see synergy between the north and the south and this middle road? Do you think we'll be able to achieve it? And is World Bank working towards creating synergies between other roads that may come around it?
And if you talk about transport corridors, on transport corridors, there are different routes. We agree. Of course, the northern route has already been constructed, which essentially trades goods from Western China to Western Europe mostly through Russia. In the last pandemic, there was a realization that we need essentially redundancy. We need to build more than one route so that traders essentially have alternate and have some competition between the routes. So the middle corridor had been around for a while, but the interest in it became even more after the pandemic and following the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Trade patterns change. On the other hand, the new idea of the middle corridor, which I like, is that it's not just trying to capture Western China to Western Europe trade, but also trying to foster regional trade. So like the old Silk Route, which had cities developing different products and trading with each other, it was essentially a series of hubs that became a route. And we're going back to that idea. There is a Western China, Western Europe trade that's going to increase over time. We think will significantly increase. But regional trade, as countries develop their economies and want to trade with each other, they'll need to develop the middle corridor. So the intent is not necessarily to finance the entire thing, is to look at which segments are inefficient and how do you make sure that those work and make sure that the logistics chains work across the entire region. So we're looking at and we're going to publish a report soon on that in the next few weeks. We're also looking at some investments as other IFIs are doing. So it's not just a World Bank project. Essentially, it's a huge investment. Several countries, investors, even the private sector, should come into these projects.
So we're going back to our basics. Thank you.
Exactly.
Thanks very much.
Thank you
very much for
Thank
taking
you.
the time out.